What's up, FFL Haven family? Hope you all are having a great Thursday today and you had a great dial day to set up the rest of your week here for business. Hope the week's gone well for you as well with appointments and apps and getting in front of families and doing ultimately what we do best, and that's making sure the families have coverage in place if something happens to them. So wanted to introduce myself first off. So I'm Abraham Busick, for those who haven't met me yet. Out here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm so grateful to be a part of the group here with y'all in FFL Haven. Y'all are a phenomenal group. Your energy, your positivity, everything that I see on Telegram just really is a good for me to be a part of that group with y'all. I learn so much and benefit from y'all for sure. So I wanted though to record something. So Mac and me were talking, and he had asked if I could do a little bit of a training on how to write good business and how to keep business on the books. And so I wanted to hop on here real quick and record that for y'all, and hopefully be beneficial to you if you're a new agent or if you're an agent who's been in the field for a little while. So first off, let me apologize that this is a recording and I'm not on the call with y'all on Thursday nights. So I'm on Eastern time and on Thursdays as well. We do stuff in our church in the evenings with small groups and lead some things. And we have a brand new baby and a 3-year-old, and we don't get back in until about 9-10 o'clock at night, and they got to get those two to bed. But hopefully here soon I'll be able to adjust my schedule and join y'all live with the FFL University. It's such a great resource for those of you who are new, and even for people like myself who have been in the industry for a little bit. So let's see if I can share my screen here with you real quick. All right, hopefully y'all can see that okay, but I wanted to do a real quick training on keeping business on the books, or you could even title this, How to Write Good Business So It Stays on the Books. If you can get good at this one thing, it will change your profitability in the business. You'll be making more policies stay on the book, so less chargebacks. So that ultimately means more money for you as the agent, right? And that's what we're all here for, is to build a good income as well as make an impact, right? And so I wanted to touch on a couple things here. I'll try to keep this brief and short for a couple minutes, but I am very passionate about this because when I first started in the industry, much like everybody else who's new, this was something that I struggled with for a little bit, and learning how to write a policy that stayed on the books, that they didn't call me to cancel within a couple, the next day or a couple weeks after I left the appointment. Because in my opinion, there's nothing more demoralizing, especially when you're a new agent, and getting phone calls from past clients telling you they want to cancel the policy, right? And it's going to happen. Nobody has a perfect rate of persistency, but we do want to make sure we're minimizing the amount of people who cancel with things that we can control. So I found in the industry, 10 to 15% of people you write, no matter how good you are, typically are going to cancel a policy. So the profitability comes from the 90% who keep their policies. And so if your persistency isn't running at 90%, 85%, somewhere in there, you're really losing money. And so hopefully this training real quick will help you be able to make some adjustments and be able to become more profitable. And ultimately, if a client cancels a policy, we haven't done anything but waste their time and our time, right? And so we don't want to waste their time. We don't want to waste their resources. And we also don't want to waste our time or waste our resources. So let's jump in here real quick. So right out of the gate, if we're going to talk about keeping business on the books and writing good business, I think we need to understand there's really only 3 reasons why clients cancel their policies. And all of those 3 reasons are going to fall, any other reasons are going to fall under these 3 categories. So number one, the first reason I have found that clients tend to cancel their policies is they didn't trust you. Number 2, it did not solve their need. And number 3, it did not fit their budget. So think back to every time you've received a phone call from a client saying they want to cancel. Think back to that conversation that you had with the client, right? There were probably some red flags and there were probably some warning signs that this was going to happen, right? And so what we want to do is we want to learn to master these 3 areas. Clients buy the policies off of trusting us. They don't buy the policy. Ultimately, they're buying us. Clients buy policies that solve their needs for their family, their concerns. And then number 3, clients buy policies and keep policies that fit their budget. And so let's dive into those. Let's start with talking about the first one. So a client doesn't trust you. What are some reasons they don't trust you, and how can we help that? So first and foremost, like I just mentioned, I think the first thing we need to understand is that clients are buying you as the agent. They don't know anything about the policy. So they're asking themselves in the appointments, can I trust this agent? When the time comes that I need this policy to pay out for my family, is this agent a trustworthy agent? Are they going to be there for my family? Are they going to help them file the claim? Is this policy going to do what they say it's going to do? Just a real quick story. I have a client in Kentucky, 77-year-old gentleman. I was able to help him get a policy in place on the mortgage protection side. He's spending $477 a month. That's a lot of money for insurance. And he called me a couple weeks back and he said that people have been trying to get him to switch from me for the coverage. And he wanted to know if I knew these people. And of course, I didn't know who the agents were. It's a very competitive market. But what he said at the end of that conversation is what really drove this point home for me again. At the end of the conversation on the phone, he told me, he goes, Abraham, he's like, I'm not switching. He's like, I trust you. I like your personality. And I know you follow through on your word. Right. So he was buying me, not the policy. He's not going to read the policy. Most clients are not going to read the policy when they get it unless they don't trust you. Right. And so ultimately, remember, the number one reason that clients cancel their policy is they don't trust you. And get it in your presentation and get it in your thought process that when you're meeting with the client, they're buying you. And so what you want to be conscious of is, what are you communicating to them about you through your body language, through your actual speech, through your preparation, through your professionalism. When they call you after the appointment, are you there? Do you reach back? Do you answer the phone? Or if not, do you call them back in a timely manner? These are all things that are developing trust or a lack of trust with the client. But some ways to help the client trust you in the appointment. Number 1, be your authentic self. The number one mistake that as I've trained new agents, I see them making is they're not their authentic self with the client. And clients can tell if you're faking it, right? So don't build fake rapport. That's the most common place I see people being inauthentic, is around the rapport. When you walk into somebody's house, find the common ground, the common interest, right? That we all share common ground with somebody, with everybody, right? Whether it's about their life, whether it's about their family history, whether it's about their house, their cars, there's common interest somewhere. Build your rapport around the common interest. I mean, we just came through a pandemic. Everybody was involved in that pandemic. We all have common ground if you look for it. So be your authentic self, be interested, not interesting. And what I mean by that is get to know them, right? Don't be talking about yourself. Get to know them, get to know who they are. Their kids, their grandkids, their job, what they retired from, what makes them tick, right? Get to know all that self through being your authentic self during the rapport. And what I mean by don't build fake rapport is, so for example, I'm not a car guy. I know nothing about cars, but if I walk up into a client's house for an appointment and they have a Lamborghini sitting there in their driveway, right? The worst thing I could do is pretend that I'm a car guy and I know about the Lamborghini, because right away, that's letting them know that I'm willing to lie about my interest. And if I'm willing to lie about that, then I'm going to be willing to lie about something else in the policy and the presentation, right? So be your authentic self. Secondly, if you want to build trust with the client, be relational, not transactional. What do I mean by that? When you're going to meet that family, when you get that lead and you're calling them and you're sitting in front of them, do you see that as a potential sale, or are you seeing that as a family who needs help? Because if you're seeing it as a potential sale, nobody likes to feel used. Nobody likes to feel like they're just a transaction. But if you can put that out of your mind, the fact that you're there to make a sale, and just be relational and be there to help them, be there for their highest good, not your highest good, right? That'll turn that conversation to being relational. And I tell you, some of the best relationships I have are with my clients. just getting to know them. There's a level of trust I've built with them. But early on, I would make it transactional, right? Because I needed money or I needed to make a sale because I was just getting started and I wasn't very good yet. And I would go in there with what I call commission breath, right? And commission breath stinks and they can smell it a mile away. And nobody wants to buy a policy from somebody who's making them a transaction. Be relational with your clients, be authentic, let them get to know you, get to know them, and be real. Thirdly, if you want to build trust with your clients, care for them, have love for them, especially when you're brand new. Genuinely caring about the client and loving on that client is going to make up for a lot of mistakes when you're brand new. I'm very much a man of faith, and there's a verse in the scripture that says love covers a multitude of sins, right? It's the same way with the presentation. When you're helping with the client, is if they can sense the fact that you truly care about them and that you truly love them as a person, they will be willing to overlook a mistake if you misquote something, or if you accidentally fill out the wrong application, or if you accidentally got them declined. They will overlook all that because they know that you actually care for them. Number 4, if you want to learn how to become a person of trust with your clients, become an agent of value. And what I mean by that is these people are wanting a sense of professionalism from you, right? They want to know that either you know what you're doing, or if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to find somebody who does and get the answer for the question. And one thing I always like to tell everybody as agents is you can't add value to somebody that you don't already possess yourself, right? And so how do you become an agent of value is by adding value to yourself through personal growth, through getting what I call your master's degree in insurance, right? Like agent guides, training videos, podcasts, mentorship. Like be studying, be a student of the process, be a student of the system, be a student of the industry, so that when you're sitting with your clients, that naturally comes out, right? They can tell, okay, you're a professional. And if you know what you're doing, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to make sure you find that out and then know what you're doing for future because of that, right? So become an agent of value, spend time in personal growth. Personal growth is not just becoming an expert in the insurance industry, but what are you doing to grow your thought process? What are you doing to grow yourself as a person? Because when you sit down with clients, John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid, right? And on a scale of 1 to 10, if I'm a 3 or a 4, then the people I'm only going to be able to help are the 1s and the 2s. And if I want to get to the point where I can help the 5, the 6s, the 7s, the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s in life, then I've got to start growing myself so I can be a 6, right? If I'm a 6, I can help a 5 or lower. If I'm an 8, I can help a 7 or lower. And if I'm a 10, I can help a 9 or lower. So be focusing on growing yourself, because that comes through in your appointments more than what you realize. And then lastly, for trust is posture. Poor posture will do more to create distrust with the client than a lot of things we've already talked about, right? Poor posture typically comes from poor confidence or lack of belief in yourself. And one thing every agent needs to understand, whether you're brand new or whether you've been in the industry for a while, is you are a licensed agent by the state, and they don't just hand those out to anybody. So because you've already passed the exam and you have your license, you already know more than 95% of the people you're going to sit with when it comes to insurance. And for the remaining 5% that might know some about insurance, you have access to more knowledge through the FFL system than they will ever possess. So take confidence in that, right? You are a licensed agent. You can help them. You're the best agent to help them with their need. Why? Because you're licensed and you're with the best company, with the best training, with the best products. So be confident in that when you're sitting with your clients. So we covered why they don't trust you and how to build that trust better so they keep the policy on the books. Let's talk about the number 2 reason why clients don't keep their policies is it did not solve their need. So you went and helped the client, they filled out an application, but after you left, they got to thinking about it and they didn't feel like your solution to the problem with that policy solved anything for them. Let's talk about number 1, why that happens first. And it's really easy to fall into this trap, and that is being a presentation versus consultation. What do I mean by that? So when I'm with the client, understand first off, people love to buy, but they hate to be sold, right? They love to purchase things for themselves and for their family, but they don't want somebody to come in and sell them when they purchase that. They're looking for consultants, not salespeople. And it's really easy when you're in an appointment, especially when you're brand new, to accidentally be in presentation mode instead of consultation mode. So how do you know if you're in presentation mode with the client or if you're in consultation mode with the client? Number one, salespeople make statements, consultants ask questions. So in your appointment with the client, do you find yourself making more statements than you are asking questions? Then that's a good sign you're being a salesperson and you're in presentation mode and you're not being in consultant mode, right? The best advice I was ever given early on in my insurance career was, if I'm about to make a statement, spend some time and figure out how you can make that statement into a question, right? Ask a lot of questions from the client. They sent in the form. They know they need coverage. The sale is made ultimately when they send in a form of some sort, right? They're looking for life insurance. The question is, are they going to buy it from you? And if you're in there talking about benefits and features and not really talking about their need, you're in presentation mode, right? Dig in, be a consultant. When I sit down with a doctor or with a financial consultant for myself or with an attorney or with a lawyer, they don't make a lot of statements, especially in the beginning, right? They ask a lot of questions so they can understand what my concern is, and then they can best diagnose a solution. So be careful that you're not in presentation mode instead of consultation mode, because what you'll find out then is you're selling people on policies and they're not buying policies, and they'll be quick to cancel those after you leave the appointment. So how do we solve their need? Number one, show solutions, not options. What do I mean by that? Well, I have it right under the screen there. Options are for buying cars and houses. Solutions are for solving real problems with real people. Guys, what we do is serious, right? Somebody being able to have the money to keep going in life after a spouse or a loved one passes away, having the money to be able to keep a mortgage over their roof over their head, having the money not to be scrambling at a funeral so they can focus on grieving, college education, whatever they're buying life insurance for, that is real problems, okay? And I think too often we can show options in the home and not solutions. How do you know if you're showing options instead of solutions? Let me just start off with this. When you're showing prices, how well do you actually know what their need is? Because if you can't accurately define their need as the agent, you're showing options. You're just throwing stuff out there, hoping it sticks, hoping they'll buy a policy. You want to get good at this business, get to the point to where you're showing options. You're solving problems because you've asked a lot of questions and you understand what the problem is. And now you can show them a tailored solution to their problem, not an option. Ask good questions. One thing I always tell all the agents are as well that I train is, when you're asking questions in the appointment, the questions should be tailored in such a way that you're walking them to the moment when they have passed, and now the family are the ones left to piece everything together. So people don't naturally like to think about that. They don't naturally have that conversation. And so it's very important that when we go into the home in the appointments or virtual via telesales, that we're asking questions, one, so they understand what the situation will look like when they pass away, walk them through that moment, let them feel the weight of that moment for a little bit with some of those questions. But then also, I can't help them if I don't truly know what that picture looks like if something happens to one of them, right? So ask good questions around what their concern is, what the situation looks like if they were to pass away currently. How is the family going to come up with the money needed to pay for the funeral, fund education, income replacement, keep the house, whatever it is they're looking for insurance for? Figure out what that backup plan would look like for them so we can walk them to that moment, and they can understand then, okay, we understand the severity, they understand the severity. Now we can show some solutions to help solve this problem. Next, if you want to solve their need, I shouldn't have to say this, but I know for myself, I have to remind myself of this all the time. Listen, like for real, right? Like listen. Stop thinking ahead of what you're going to say next when they're talking and just listen to what they have to say. Because if you're thinking ahead of what you're going to say next, the next question you're going to ask, how you're going to counter what they say, you're not present in the conversation and they can tell. And then that puts you back into being a salesperson, right? A consultant listens and then asks follow-up questions based off what the client says to better understand the situation. Next, solving their need, be ready to pivot. Clients are going to throw you curveballs no matter how much you prepare and prep before the appointment. So be ready to pivot, whether it's a medication, whether it's a different need issue altogether. You know, I've gone into some homes with a final expense lead or an instant internet life lead, and they've said they're trying to cover their funeral. And I get in there and I start talking to them, and we're going over the financial inventory. And all of a sudden now we're having a mortgage protection appointment, or we're having an income replacement appointment instead of a final expense appointment, or even with medications, right? Maybe you're sitting with the client and you ask the health questions and maybe you didn't dig deep enough. And now you're going through an application, you presented one option or a solution, and they chose that. When you're filling out the application, America pops up and says they won't be eligible for it due to medications. Be comfortable and ready to pivot, right? Don't just throw them into something else just to get an application. Hit the pause button, figure out why they aren't eligible, or figure out what happened or what the need is, and be comfortable enough pivoting to another product, another need, another solution, right? And then lastly, one thing I always like to remind everybody of, I don't care how long you've been in the business, if you're having trouble finding a solution to fit their need, reach out to your mentor for help. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting another pair of eyes on the situation. You're too close to the problem to see the solution. And so giving that phone call, sending that text message with the, the financial inventory sheet, and getting somebody else's perspective on that appointment might help you find a solution that fits their needs. So don't ever be afraid to reach out. But ultimately, if it doesn't solve their need, first thing I'm always doing the check down on was I in consultation mode or presentation mode with the clients? And then lastly, the last reason why clients cancel their policy is it did not fit their budget. Honestly, more commonly than not, this one is not the problem. More commonly, it's the first two. So they didn't trust you, or it didn't fit their need. Rarely is the problem when they cancel their budget. They may tell you it's their budget, but that's because they don't want to tell you they don't trust you, or that you didn't give them a solution to their need. So this one is rare, but sometimes clients will cancel because it didn't fit their budget. And so we want to make sure we're helping clients that we're getting them in policies that they can afford right now, that they can afford even if the refrigerator goes out, or they need new tires on the car, or as inflation happens, right? That is something that comfortably fits their budget now, because they can always come back and upgrade later, right? So something in place now that you can afford and keep is better than a big policy that we put in place today and you cancel next month. All we did then was waste your money and waste your time, and your family is still vulnerable. So one way to help make sure policies are fitting their budget, though, is I like to go over in the home, my job versus their job. So before I show pricing and options and solutions to them, I always make sure they know, so guys, my job here today now is to find something that comfortably fits your budget, right? But I don't know your budget. Okay. You know your budget. So your job today is to be honest with me as I'm going through the options and solutions for you. And then your job is to pick the one that you can afford today. Sometimes you'll lose a sale before you even get to that point because they don't know how to tell you that none of the options fit their budget. And make it an environment that they understand they are in control of the budget. It is okay for them to tell you, hey, I can't afford $200 a month, but I can afford $80 a month. Or maybe I can't afford $80 a month today, but I can afford $50 a month. That's their job. My job is to be their liaison and help them find something that fits their budget, but it's their job to be honest with me about their budget, and it's their job to pick the one that they can afford today. Speaking of budget, one thing I wanted to make a note of here was leave your wallet in the car. What do I mean by that? Your budget and priorities are not going to be their budget and priorities. I can't tell you how many times, especially when I was in the field doing appointments before virtual and telesales, I'd pull up to a house. I mean, it's got trash all over the place in the front, like it's in the poorest of the poorest of the poorest neighborhood. And I'm walking in there, they got health issues, they're older, they're smokers. And I know that anything we show them is going to be a pretty premium. And how many times I go in there and I'm talking with them and they don't have a lot of money, but it's a priority for them. And so I've walked out of those homes with some of my biggest policies ever, and they're still on the books because people have money for what they prioritize. And one of the worst things you could do is walk into that situation, and because you think they're not going to have any money, you start trying to show them some really tiny, small options that doesn't meet their need when they are willing to prioritize and adjust their budget to make sure they have coverage in place that's good for their family, and vice versa. I've walked into some really nice places, some really well-to-do neighborhoods, and I've walked out of there with only a $50 a month application. The point here is leave your wallet, leave your mindset in the car. Their budget and their priorities is up to them. So have that conversation with them. Again, it's their job to be honest about their budget, and it's your job to help point them in the right direction. And then lastly, for what doesn't fit their budget, when this does happen, when people cancel for this reason, I found ultimately for myself and for other agents I've been training that it's because I pushed them towards a certain option or a certain solution when I was going over options. And it wasn't even intentional. It happens very subtly, but I think you have to be mindful of that and be careful. So when you're going over the different options for them, the 3 different options or 2, however many you show, when you're going over those different options, be very careful not to talk up the best one. Like, man, this is the best option. This will do the best for your family. Like, this is the A grade option. This is the one you want. We don't want to do that, right? Because what's that's doing, that's pushing them towards an option that maybe they can't afford, but they're not going to be comfortable enough telling you they can't afford it because they don't feel they feel shame in picking a lower option. So when I'm presenting options and solutions to clients, I let them know, okay, so these are all 3 solutions to your problems. Here's the first one. Obviously, this is the most expensive one. Here's what it does. Here's option 2. This is the medium priced one. Here's what it does. Here's option 3. This is the best priced option. Here's the coverage that it falls under for your family. And create an environment where there's no shame in them picking a lower option if that's what they can afford right now. Because again, build that up to them, right? Like, they're trying to do the right thing for their family and put coverage in place. And that's noble. That's honorable, right? So let's make sure we have an environment when we're in the point with the client that they know it's okay to pick a lower option if that's what they can afford right now. We don't want to push them towards an option that they're going to have to call and cancel when they need new tires on the car, or when they have an unexpected appliance bill, or the price of gas goes up, whatever the issue is. So I hope that helps y'all. This is kind of what I train on, again, for getting back to how to write good business and how to write policies that stay on the books. I am love to reach out to y'all. If y'all have any questions on this, my phone number is 765-631-2939. You will never bother me by shooting me a text or giving me a phone call. I'm more than willing to share whatever I know. But man, I hope y'all are having a great week so far. And I hope this added some value to y'all.